There seem to be some controversial passages from the Jewish Talmud making their way around the internet. I'd like to discuss one of them from a book called Sofrim, page 15. It says there, Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai said, quote, "The best of the Gentiles should be killed." Ooh, that looks really bad for the Jews, since the Talmud is a very central book in their religion. Is this a form of Jewish jihad? Is this real? Do Jews have to go and kill the best Gentiles? So yes, it is a real quote, and I actually believe that it is relevant today. Now, if you're looking to believe that Jews are bad, and that their Talmud teaches them to hate the Gentiles, quit while you're ahead and turn off the video now, because you're not going to like what I'm going to say as we go. But for those of you really wishing to understand the critically important lesson of this shocking, and perhaps one other shocking and provocative statement, let's get to work. So first of all, yes, Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai did say this about 1,900 years ago. And I actually think he may have had one particular best Gentile person in mind. Who could that be? But it's not the only shocking statement on that page. How about this one? The best of the doctors is going to hell. What? Why is the best doctor going to hell? You'd think he or she would get a good reward for healing the sick. We'll come back to that one, but first it would seem that the Jews aren't as religious as they claim. They don't fulfill Rabbi Simon's instruction. They don't go out and kill Gentiles. I'm a religious Jew. Am I violating my own law by not going out to kill good Gentiles? So obviously the intent of the people who post this kind of stuff on the internet is to stoke anti-Semitism. And these Talmud quotes are what they claim to be justifications for Jew hatred, as if gefilte fish wasn't enough. I like gefilte fish. But it would seem that this Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai doesn't know his basic Jewish law. One of the first commandments given to mankind in Genesis is the prohibition of murder, and that includes Jews and that includes non-Jews. Not only are Jews not required to murder Gentiles, they're completely forbidden to do so. Nowhere in the official code of Jewish law, and yes, there is such a book which was codified about 5 centuries ago, is there permission for a Jew to murder any human being. There was and is no rabbi in the world that allows a Jew to kill the best or the worst non-Jew. Well, maybe the worst if it's like a Hamas person in self-defense, but only in self-defense. So what is Rabbi Simon up to? Okay, so here is the real explanation that the anti-Semites don't want you to hear. First of all, Rabbi Simon's statement is practically irrelevant. The Talmud contains 2 types of discussions, legal and allegorical. Most of the Talmud is legal discussions about Jewish ritual observance, how to keep kosher, how to keep the Sabbath, and so forth. The allegorical sections are filled with stories and, yes, attention-getting, provocative statements such as these, which have an educational goal, not an actionable one. That's why all of the books on Jewish law, including the Code of Jewish Law, ignore these sections. Jews are not allowed to murder non-Jews, whatever Rabbi Simon says. Ooh, Simon says. But with that, let's ask, who is this mysterious best Gentile that Rabbi Simon says should be killed? I have an idea. It's fair to ask this question because if Rabbi Simon was simply saying Jews should hate and kill all Gentiles, why does he specifically say the best Gentile? I think he's got somebody or some type of somebody in mind. And who is this Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai from 1900 years ago anyway? His opinion is just one out of many dozens of sages in the Talmud. Where did he get that idea from? So a brief review of Rabbi Simon's bitter life story will help. In his days, the Romans ruled the land of Israel. Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai had studied with a very great rabbi, Rabbi Akiva, who was much beloved. Do you know what the Romans did to Rabbi Akiva? It's pretty gruesome, so I'll say it quickly. They killed him by scraping off his skin with a sharp pitchfork. Rabbi Simon was then chased by the Romans himself, who wanted to kill him, and he had to hide in a cave in northern Israel for 12 long years. So it's very clear that Rabbi Simon had bitter feelings towards those cruel Romans, and who could blame him? Especially their anti-Semitic Caesar, a man named Hadrian. Hadrian hated the Jews so much that he changed the name of the land from Judea to Wait for it, Palestine. He forbade Jews to study their holy books and killed many, many rabbis in cruel and horrific fashion. I think that he might be the best Gentile that Rabbi Simon was addressing, who it would be great to kill, without Rabbi Simon saying it explicitly for obvious safety reasons. But I did say at the beginning of this video that this saying of Rabbi Simon can be relevant today. Hadrian is long gone. So who am I talking about? Well, there are people like him still wandering the planet. Who would Rabbi Simon be declaring to be best Gentiles today as candidates for a desirable death? Let's go back to the doctors. Remember, the best doctors are going to hell, but not the worst ones? That is so backwards. Or is it? When the Talmud gives us an allegorical statement, we have to look at the details. Who is the best doctor? It doesn't just mean the most capable. I think it means the one who thinks that he is the best doctor, the one who thinks he knows better than everyone else, the one who presents himself as the most caring and the most qualified and expert practitioner to whom no one else can compare. And therefore, he won't allow his patients to request a second opinion. And as a result, his patients may die because he blew it. All because of his ego, because he's the best doctor. So now, similar to the best doctors, when Rabbi Simon says the best Gentile should be killed, he may be referring to the sick hypocrisy of those Romans who held themselves up to be the best Gentiles. They claim to have a high culture and they commit acts of barbarism. The Nazis held themselves up as a superior race who condemned degenerate culture and became degenerates themselves. Those phony, superior Gentiles, virtue signaling at every chance, singing about their refined culture, torture rabbis to death, or send millions to perish in gas chambers in the most gruesome fashion. That's who Rabbi Simon Bar Yochai is talking about. And it's mercy for the world to get rid of people like this. Don't be fooled. Indeed, the full version of that text in Sofrim 15 happens to add a few words to Rabbi Simon's statement, which the anti-Semites never quote. They stop earlier. The full statement is, the best Gentile should be killed at a time of war. Well, that means something entirely different, doesn't it? It's telling you to be super careful in dangerous times and don't be trusting of people who hold themselves up as being the best. On October 7th, 2023, some of the same Gazan workers who had been employed by Israelis in the villages next to the Gaza Strip returned to show the terrorists who lived and to kill their employers. One woman who used to volunteer to drive sick Gazans to Israeli hospitals was murdered in her home. The Israelis thought they were friends with these Gazans. They were their best Gentiles. Brotherly love is what God wants. Just read the whole book of Genesis. There are a few other fun Talmud misquotes out there, which I hope to address in other videos. But in the meantime, let's not let the anti-Semites, with their vast Talmudic knowledge, drive us apart with their slander.